When you fall, you have two choices. You can either stay down or get back up. Unfortunately, sometimes you don't always know how to get back up. That's what I'm here for. Take my hand and let's rise together. Welcome to After You've Fallen. Remember a few episodes ago when I mentioned that I wouldn't be posting every week? Well, I was right. As much as I want things to go according to plan, they don't. The most consistent thing in my life is inconsistency. When you add a brain injury on top of normal everyday life, you can bet your bottom dollar that the most predictable thing will be unpredictability. Today, I'd like to discuss some of the things that I do to help manage the chaos that is brought about by the changing levels of resources, energy, fatigue, pain, stimuli, etc. Now, first of all, let me say that routine is important. It's important for the young developing brains as well as the mature repairing brains. Unfortunately, when there is no rhyme or reason to your lack of sleep or sudden cognitive fatigue, routine becomes very, very difficult. As I mentioned in a previous episode, I hate the word routine because of its common adherence to a clock. I don't know if I'm going to wake up at 2 or at 5 or at 8 and be awake for the rest of the day. I don't know if I will be able to last a full 20 minutes working at the computer. I don't know if I'll have enough energy to shower. I don't know if my head will be in writhing pain. Brain damage makes attempting to plan life extremely unreliable. So, without head trauma, establishing a routine is vital. It's also very important if you are caring for someone. However, if you have sustained effects from a blow to your head, you have to be patient with yourself as you learn how to live by a rhythm. Once again, the word rhythm is one that my speech therapist and I coined as an alternative to the word routine. The essence of rhythm is that you do what your body is capable of at that moment. This is particularly difficult for someone who has a very driven, motivated personality like myself. On the flip side, you should not give up and never try. But something that others have to remind me constantly is that when my body has had enough, I won't be productive at doing anything further, and it's time for a break. I need to recharge. On a slightly separate note, I also have a number of essentials spread all across my house, my purse, my car, etc. I'll address that on a later podcast. One thing I do to preserve my limited resources and be more predictable is by utilizing small coping mechanisms, like the essentials spread everywhere. But, for example, I don't know why showering is so hard for me, but it is so extremely draining. So, as soon as I get out of the shower, before I even get dressed, I lay on the floor of my closet. I lay there until I can find enough resources to tackle the next task, getting dressed. Then I may end up back on the floor until I'm ready to tackle the rest of the day. Is there something that really drains you? Can you find a simple solution like laying on the closet floor? Another method I use is to find what I like and stick to it for a while. Making decisions is so incredibly difficult. You know how there are some people who are very decisive in all they do, and there are others who can never make up their mind about anything? Yeah, my family's in that latter group. My dad hates taking us out to eat because we can never pick where to go. What makes it even worse is that after a head injury, everything gets magnified, and menial decisions like what food to eat takes way more energy than you have available at times. Therefore, when I find something that tastes good, I make a lot of it and I eat it frequently until I need to find something else to satisfy that need. If you have trouble with decision making, try sticking with one course of action for a while, knowing that you can make a new decision later. After all, with things like food, you're going to have to eat for the rest of your life. Because I can remember who I was before my accident and all that I could do, I beat up on myself a lot. Not being able to do something that you used to do all the time is so frustrating. Not only that, but because of the resulting PTSD, a lot of norepinephrine is running through me all the time too. Norepinephrine, if you recall from the neurotransmitters episode, is the fight or flight chemical in our brains that, if activated for too long, can cause a lot of chaos. There are a few things I have found that help with these problems. The first is good, uplifting music. I'm going to do an entire episode on the benefits of music and the specific music I listen to. I may sporadically mention specific songs that are amazing for the issue at hand. For example, some of my favorite songs to pull me out of feeling like crap are songs that emphasize who I truly am. I'm about to list a lot of good songs here. I do this because I believe they can be helpful for you too. I hope that you go and look them up. I'm constantly trying to add more of these kinds of lyric videos to my personal, Shannon Blackham, YouTube channel. This is by no means a full list, as I have many, many more. Some of them you may be familiar with, while a number of them I doubt you will be. So I'll say them slowly so you can write them down and look them up later. What Makes You Beautiful by One Direction. Who I Am by Mercy River. What Heaven Sees in You from Especially for Youth. We Are Warriors by Avril Lavigne. That's Who I Am by Hilary Weeks. Just the Way You Are by Bruno Mars. I Am Enough by Callie Reid. Broken and Beautiful by Kelly Clarkson. I Can Just Be Me by Laura Story. This Is Me from The Greatest Showman. He Loves Me by Hilary Weeks. Fight Song by Rachel Platten. Who Says by Selena Gomez. Self-Portrait by Stephanie Smith. The Ocean in Me by Sherry Call. Beautiful to Him by Rachel Thibodeau. Beautiful for Me by Mercy River. According to You by Orianthi. Broken Hearts Like Mine by Sherry Call. Not the Only One by lots of different artists. Typical Girl by Sherry Magel. Invincible by Sherry Call. Beautiful Inside by Kirby Hayborn. This Is Me by Demi Lovato and Joe Jonas from Camp Rock. Beautiful Life by Mercy River. Even Hymns That Speak Peace, such as Be Still My Soul or I Am a Child of God. If your music is generally discouraging, I suggest you make a playlist of all of these songs or follow my playlist on Spotify and play that music regularly. Watch as you feel yourself lifted. But there are also some times that putting more messages inside of my head isn't exactly beneficial. My brain runs a bazillion miles a minute at all times, and if I sit in silence, I often find myself in a downward spiral. When this happens, I need a diversion. One of the best methods I have found that helps not only in these situations, but in almost every other form of healing is humor. Finding the little things that can be laughed at. For example, some of the absurd things that kids say, or how I can only cry out of one eye, or what happens when cognitive fatigue hits and I read plumbing as plum-bing. My dad and I have a great relationship because he does this well. We banter back and forth all of the time. But most of our content comes from a stand-up comedian who does this better than anyone else I know. His name is Brian Regan. I have actually had the opportunity to meet him in person shortly after my accident, and ever since have remained close with him. He is hilarious and brings joy in the small, simple tasks of everyday life. Additionally, sometimes I need new content that I haven't heard a million times and have memorized to a T. I need something that can help redirect my frustration and toxic levels of norepinephrine outside of my body. For these reasons, I listen to political podcasts. I know that it sounds counterintuitive to have ugly politics playing while all of the voices of your head are so ugly. But for me, it helps to focus those voices outward instead of always looking at myself. This is definitely not something that will work for everyone. In fact, it won't work for most people. After my head injury, many things that work one way for someone ends up working the opposite way for me. I'll discuss more about this in many future episodes. But you can try to find something that will help you divert your thoughts to something that is more productive or at least distract yourself. The other thing that I will often listen to or watch is TV shows. I watch TV shows rather than movies because it demands less concentration and they are much shorter. I watch the same sorts of shows over and over. I watch them over and over because I don't have to be attentive, but it still diverts my focus away from all of the pain I'm in or struggles I face. I enjoy shows that have a dilemma that comes and is resolved in the same episode while usually having some underlying storyline across the whole series. Psych is amazing because it has all of that while also throwing in some amazing humor and plenty of applicable moments. For example, the food that they talk about on Psych is literally amazing. But I also enjoy shows like Monk, White Collar, Burn Notice, Scandal, Stitchers, Nikita, The Finder, The Good Doctor, House, iZombie, Chuck, etc. because of their focus on one thing per episode. You can try these shows to see if they work for you. They may not, and that's okay. But I do think it's important to have outlets that can take focus off of yourself, which especially includes away from social media. I have a friend who loves to read to escape reality. Even though reading comprehension plummeted after my accident, maybe that's something that you'd really enjoy. Another outlet that is important for more reasons than simply getting things outside of yourself is to write. Writing is oftentimes challenging for me, however, even just writing in a journal, but it's a very good thing to do. I can't draw to save my life, but it may be a great source for you. Creating or designing things is another great outlet. I love building Lego temples. Playing or writing music is another thing I've utilized. Any sort of creative outlet is a great way to reduce stress and promote relaxation, even cooking or baking. As a side note, I've recently found out that I love decorating cakes. There are plenty of other great relaxation techniques that work for a lot of people, but only frustrate me further. I'll still mention just a few though, because they may help you. Try deep breathing, meditation, yoga, progressive muscle relaxation, massage, acupuncture, or Tai Chi. Exercising is actually a great way to pump adrenaline out of your body and replace them with healthy endorphins. Sleeping and eating well is vital, as well as some form of social support. For me, I only have a very few number of people that I trust enough with all of my sad emotions and flaws. But these few people are very important to me, and I make sure they know it. Even though I hate words like routine and schedule, it is important to have structure. For me, that comes in different doctor's appointments that I have at the same time every week. I have my neuropsychologist every Tuesday at 10. My physical therapy is every Wednesday at 1. It would be more often if my physical therapist didn't move so far away, but for now, it's once a week. Even if my structure is not at a specific time, I do have one friend that I see almost every week and I usually get a priesthood blessing from every week. Structure also comes in the form of organization. Fortunately, I enjoy organizing things, but I really enjoy being organized. This is actually neurologically backed. Not only does being organized help to reduce stress, elevate moods, help you feel and look better, but it also helps to organize the chaos inside of your brain. When my brain feels especially erratic and in complete disarray, organizing something in your external world can actually allow your brain to organize pieces of your internal world. If organizing a closet or a desk sounds too overwhelming, try organizing a single drawer, your coffee table, or your assortment of pens and pencils. Unfortunately, every single hour is different. This means that every time I wake up throughout the night, I have to evaluate and determine if I will be able to go back to sleep. If I can't, I must gauge the kind of mental and physical energy I have to see what I can do. Sometimes it's working on a podcast or a blog post. Other times it's playing logic games on my tablet, and very rarely I decide to exercise. Even doing nothing is not something I enjoy doing all day. Actually, especially not doing nothing. So I'm constantly reassessing my resource levels to find out what I can be doing next. It's not that simple, and it's absolutely not fun. But after a severe TBI, it's something that you have to do constantly. And Others need to be patient as we try to rebuild those resources. I don't know if anything I just talked about will help you, but I hope that when you feel like your life is completely unpredictable, you can look to any of my examples as ideas of something that you can find predictability in. When your life feels totally out of control, it is best to find what you do have control over. When this sentiment has been said to me, I've felt like it's an empty platitude. I don't have control over anything in or around me. I can't control my body, my brain, my mind, my fatigue, my failed plans, unrealized expectations, the list goes on. This idea, though it comes from a good place and can be great advice to many people, has only frustrated me further. Instead, what I have found beneficial is to find the little things that I don't have control over. Not the big things, but the little things. It's like being inside of a house and trying to make things perfect. This goes back to the expectations I've been talking about in recent episodes. When you are trying to do something and the light goes out, you'll get frustrated, angry that technology interrupted your progress. What we often forget to remember is that there is a sun that shines brighter than anything else just outside the window. When someone gets upset that they can't make things look just the way they want it to, they often forget to look out at the beautiful world God has created for us. We may not be able to feel pretty or satisfied with our surroundings when we make them, but walk outside, whether you live in the beautiful mountains, the relaxing beach, or the peaceful flatlands, God created them all for you. Find the other little ways that God reminds you that He is constantly in your life every single day. It may be a smile from a stranger or a call from a friend. Maybe it's being alert enough not to run into a car that cut you off on the road. Or maybe it's a kitty cat that loves you, or magical hair, or an insight that came to you in a quiet moment when you shut out the world. Yes, these are all examples from my personal life. Even better than just recognizing them, it has been vital in my life to write them in a journal, or apparently a diary that most people call it. This is something I was going to address on a separate podcast, but I feel it's appropriate here. There are times in one's life that hits that individual different than it hits anyone else. I did not know that that was the case in October of 2007 when I heard the talk, "Oh, Remember, Remember," by President Henry B. Eyring in the first presidency of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. He told about the blessings of writing the tender mercies of the Lord in a journal every day. When I heard this counsel, I took it as a direct message to me that I needed to start doing that very evening. And boy, oh boy, was it a good thing I did. For the next 2 years or so, I wrote almost every single day without fail. In 2010, I was less religious about it, and after the accident, it has been much more sporadic. But those 2 years were vital in my later recovery. I've briefly mentioned that my road has been very, very dark at times. I went through a period of time where I did not believe God's love for me. I went through a few years where I was so mad that I was still here, and I tried to take my life. This landed me in the mental hospital twice. I plan to talk more about that and suicidal thoughts later, but for now, it is sufficient to say that this Tender Mercies journal is what got me out of those incredibly dark times. It's one thing to hear someone else tell you things like, life is worth it, or hardships make you better, or even every challenge you go through in this life will be compensated for in the eternities. But it's a completely life-changing thing to read yourself write those kinds of messages through personal experiences. I'm not saying it was easy. I'm not saying it was fast. But I was the only person that was able to get through to me. My parents didn't even know how deep some of these passages were, but they brought me a transcript of some of these entries while I was in the mental hospital the second time. It was in those moments where I was reading my own words that the light started to flicker again inside of me. It is especially difficult to find the little ways God whispers that He loves me after the accident, but it is important that I make note of them for the harder days. I testify that He loves each one of us, and His deepest desire is for us to recognize that love. He yearns for a relationship with His children. He is faithful. His love, His richness, and His strength are predictable. So when everything else seems out of place, unpredictable, and out of control, take comfort in knowing that God is aware, He is loving, and He is eternal. Thanks for listening. Please share this podcast with anyone you know, as I hope that no one will have to struggle by themselves, feel hopeless, alone, or out of options. Send any questions you would like me to answer to afteryou'vefallen@gmail.com, no apostrophe. Check out the official Instagram page. You can check out my blog for more information, shannonblackham.blogspot.com, and visit my personal YouTube page or follow me on my personal Spotify for great music that has blessed me in my life. Come back every Monday for a new episode.